challenges. We're going to start by looking at the Hebrew of it, because a lot of times the Hebrew word teaches us a lot about the concept. Now, here's the fascinating thing about a text. Does anyone know what the Hebrew word for challenge is?
Would it be nisaeon?
Excellent.
It's written right there.
It's written right
Did I
there.
pronounce it correctly?
You
Nisaeon?
even pronounced it correctly. Well done. Now, here's the fascinating thing about nisaeon. Nisaeon shares a root with a different word called nace. Does anyone know what nace means?
Miracle.
Miracle.
And banner.
The concept in biblical Hebrew is whenever you have one word that has more than one meaning, there's a connection between the different words. So what's the connection between a challenge and a miracle? I want to ask the question this way. If a challenge is related to a miracle, is a challenge something that is possible for you to do or not?
Yes.
So if it's possible, where's the miracle? Now, if you're going to say to me, well, then, no, it's not. But why would God give us something that's not possible?
Because he intervenes.
But why would God give us something that's impossible to overcome, to intervene and help us through it? Like it's what's the purpose?
So we
of it?
can appreciate
The
God.
experience.
Yeah, and that to appreciate his presence in our life and that he wants us to have a relationship with him. So he's asking us to appeal to him to help us get through the challenge, that it's not.
Because then the miracle is like based on the relationship between God and you.
Okay, interesting. Hold on to that thought. Nace also means a ban. And the classic answer to why does God give us a miracle is because what a challenge does is it takes something that is in our potential. We have the challenge, we overcome it, and it now becomes actualized. And just like a banner shows something to the rest of the world, when we get through a test, we show what was in our potential is actualized, and everyone and God can see it. People in our lives in it can see it. I'll give you an example. Let's just say you are running in a field, and you try to jump over a fence, and the person's running in the field tries to jump over the fence is too high, turns around and sees that there's a bull chasing him, runs and jumps over the fence. Now, this time he manages to get over the fence. What happened? What's the difference?
Because he had such a huge fear that it gave him adrenaline. That's like the stories you hear about a child is under a car and the father lifts it off.
That actually happened to me.
Oh my
To
goodness.
you.
What?
Well, we had a nanny that lived with us and she was backing up her car and Michael was about 2 years old and she went over him, over the curb, and he was under the car. I actually lifted the car.
It's that adrenaline, and the analogy is the test, the challenge in our life is that burst of adrenaline that pushes us to accomplish things that we wouldn't have accomplished otherwise.
It wasn't impossible. It just wasn't possible yet.
So you're raising a good point. I think it's something that we can resonate with, right? Because we can all, I think of times in our lives where we didn't think we could get through and then we got through, right? But where's the miracle? Is that a miracle or not? Go back to the person in the field. Is it a miracle when the bull is chasing him that he manages to jump over the field? I can ask you differently. When I gave this analogy, was anyone in the room or on Zoom like, no, that's not possible that he jumped higher when there was a bull? No, we explained it. That's adrenaline. When we talk about a miracle is something like, wow, like it's inexplicable, right? So where is the miracle? Now, here's the thing. Let's go back to the guy in the field. He's still there. The bull is chasing him. He jumps over. Is there a limit that
Is there what?
a limit? If it's 10 feet tall, he can jump over it. If it's 100 feet tall, he's not going to be able to jump over it. Basically, what we have so far is that a challenge in life is kind of like spiritual adrenaline. It helps us actualize our potential. But if we are going to use that analogy fully, then the analogy would say yes, it helps us actualize our potential, but there are limits. There are some things that are within our potential and some things that are outside of my potential. I can't do it. Helps me go further, but there's a limit because this is where it's different. In order to explain it, let me tell you a story. King David turns around to God and said, Hashem, why do we say God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and not God of David? Now, we have to understand something about King David, is King David was extremely humble. The name itself is Dal, which means poverty, Vav, which means connection to God, and Dal, which means poverty. In essence, he was a humble person. He was connected to God. If you read through the Tehillim, the Psalms that he wrote, you'll see that relationship to God is there. He had nothing of his own. It was all about his connecting to the source, connecting to the God. So when he's asking God, why do you not say God of David? There's a deeper question here. He's not saying I should be up there on that hall of fame as well. He's saying, where did I fall short? Right? Abraham, Isaac, and Yitzchak and Yaakov, they must have done something to merit having your name attached to it. Right? And I want that too. So it's kind of like someone who goes to their boss and kind of says, this person's being promoted, this person's being promoted, this person's being promoted.
How can I earn
what?
that?
Yeah, what do I need to do to be promoted? Hashem says, they were tested by me and they passed, and you were not tested. So what does King David say? He says, give me a test. What happens next? He's tested and he fails.
Oh, yeah.
What's going on behind this story? There's a couple of things we have to understand. The name of God is sort of the essence of God, revealing God's presence in the world. So there's something about going through a test that brings God's presence into this world. There's something specific about a test that brings God's presence into the world. Evelinda, yeah. And the second thing that I wanted to ask is, what happens here? King David asked for a test and then he failed. Why? Why didn't he pass the test? Okay, so let's keep those questions in mind. And I want to ask you a question. Has anyone here ever had this experience when something's happening in your life, whatever it is, and you feel like, I can't? Sorry,
Yeah, of course.
I can't do it.
I think
Yeah.
we've all had that. I think that's a universal experience.
So here's the thing.
You do it.
That feeling is based in truth. Because what a test actually does for us is it doesn't just actualize our potential, but it takes what wasn't possible and now it becomes possible. So that feeling that a person has, which is, I can't do this, right? God, this is too hard for me, or I can't do this. It's accurate. It's accurate. And then what do we have to do is we can't do it on our own, but God can. And the point of the test is we have to do two things. We have to recognize that this is something that God is doing. We have to attach ourselves to God, and we have to ask God for his help, and we have to try. And then what happens is a person gets through the test and they become someone that they weren't before. And oftentimes you'll turn around to someone and you'll say to them, how did you get through that? And what do they answer?
I don't know.
I don't know. Why? Because this is what's going on. It's not that this was my potential beforehand and the test helped me get it over. It's different than that person who's running from the bull, right? He's got his limit, whether it's 15 feet or 20 feet, whatever it is, there is a limit, right? And 100 feet, he can't jump over that. But with what's in a spiritual sense, it's not that this is how much my potential is, and the test will actualize my potential. It's maybe this was my potential, but the test takes me from a place where I wasn't able to do it. And because I attached myself to God, and because I tried anyway, because I had faith and because I tried, it now becomes something that's possible. It now becomes something that I'm able to do. And that's why we have those feelings of like, I can't. And also the feeling of like, I don't know how I got through that. Here's the part where a test reveals God's presence in the world. Because when a person goes through a challenge and they're able to get through it, whether we recognize that it's God or not, we all recognize that there's something high about a human being. I just finished reading the book Hostage by Ellie Sharabi. You read a book like that, or you hear the stories of the hostages, and you're like, huh, right? And
It's a miracle they survived.
it's a miracle
Oh,
that
yeah.
they survived, and it's also, we recognize that there is something higher, right? It shows us that there is a God, because if it wasn't possible for me to do it, if I can't, and then I do it, so who did it? There's someone higher than me that helped me do it. Do we have a choice to recognize that God, that there's a higher power or not? We do have a choice. There's always going to be a choice of whether we recognize it or not. But there's Rav Shimon ben Shassar, who was one of the rabbis in the Talmud, says that there's no part of the natural world that goes beyond itself. A plant doesn't get up and offer you a cup of water. An animal doesn't go past its nature. Every part of the world, it doesn't go past its nature, except human beings. We can overcome our nature. Something it's in my nature to get angry, and I can train myself, I can teach myself to be calm. Again, that shows us that there's something higher. Again, is it a choice to see that or not? Yes, absolutely. Right? There's always going to be a choice, and there's always going to be the people that will say no. The fact that it shows us that there's something deeper. For example, there's a famous story in the Talmud that there was a rabbi who bought a donkey, and he realized that the donkey was worth a lot more than what he paid for it. So he went back to the person he bought it from, and he said to him, you undercharged me, here's the extra money. And the person was so in awe of it. Listen to what he said. He said, blessed is the God of this rabbi. He didn't say, blessed are you. He recognized that someone,
It was the God in him.
someone who is able to overcome, we all as human beings have greed and want to keep things to ourselves and are selfish. But someone who is able to overcome that, it's because they attach themselves to a higher purpose, which is God. It's a value system. That's the element that the test reveals to the world, because, and in our life, if you think about it, like if I couldn't do it on my own, then who's helping me? Questions? Yeah.
Why do certain people get the help and others don't? If you think about the miracle of the hostages surviving, why not the Beavis children?
It's an excellent question. Firstly, God has a plan for everything, right? I don't know why God had a plan for some hostages not to survive and for some to survive.
Sure.
Right? And if we bring it back to our lives, there are moments in our lives where we feel like I can't, and there are moments in our lives that we look back and like, wow, I don't know how I did that. And oftentimes the I can't, right, or we're looking and we're saying like, where is God? Is in middle. Maybe in 10 years, maybe in 20 years. We're going to turn around and be able to say, oh my gosh, how did I get through that?
Yeah.
Right? So there's a plan, and sometimes we just got to have a bit more patience, or a lot more patience to do it. Sorry? I'll give you a few examples, right? Nisaeon talks about it. It says that the beginning is work, but the end is a gift. What does it mean? It means that in the beginning, you have to put in a lot of effort. It's hard, it's hard, it's hard. But this is the wording it says. It says the end is a gift. It doesn't say the end is the result of it. The end is a gift. And we see this somewhere else as well, right? The Talmud says that if someone tells you, Yogati umatsasi, I looked and I found, believe them. If someone says, I didn't look and I found, don't believe them. If someone says, I looked and I didn't find, don't believe them. But if someone says, Yogati umatsasi, I looked and I found, like I put in the effort and I achieved it, believe them. Now, what's fascinating is the word matsasi comes from the same word, and you might know this word, as matzia. Does anyone know what matzia is?
Bargain.
A bargain. What's a
Yes,
bargain?
it's you get something for less than you think it's worth.
Like a
Less than it's worth. Yeah.
It's an unexpected find.
Yeah.
A bargain is you go into Costco and there are these pants that should be $50 and you find it for $20. It's an unexpected find. And this is kind of what it's teaching us, is that if one is the challenge and one is the effort that I put in, it should equal 2. But that's not what happens. Sometimes it equals 5, sometimes it equals 10. So we're saying that the effort that we put in can result in transcendence, in something greater than what we thought it was. And if I can borrow your example, the kid is under the car. You expect to be able to lift, I don't know, half a car, and you're able to lift a whole car. Why? Because you put in the effort, and then sort of God carries you across. And it happens in our spiritual life as well, right? Sometimes we say, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, or I'm going to try and do X, Y, Z. And we try, and the result is greater than the efforts that we put in. And that's where the miracle is. The miracle is that it was not possible for you beforehand. You felt like that was an accurate feeling. And then you connected to God and you try and you put in the effort, and it becomes something. We have to understand that the world we live in right now is a world where God is very hidden. Mm-hmm. So you're going to see that people that have a God in their life and people that don't have a God in their life are going to look similar. Because if everyone that had a God in their life was so much more successful than anyone that didn't have a God in their life, like, big deal. Everyone would believe then. It's a free choice to believe. And I don't know how to do this. I can't do this, and then we put in the effort. The result is not just that I was wrong, I couldn't do it. The result was you were right, and it's miraculous. And you did that. If I ask you, what's our potential as a human being?
Who knows?
Yeah.
It's limitless. Why? Because of this idea. It's limitless because we're tested and I can't, and then we do. Right? And it's transcendent. It's more than the it's more than the effort that we put in. It's transcendence, that thing. When it comes down to it, when we're faced with something, the question shouldn't be, is this possible? The question should be, is it necessary? Because if it's necessary, I'll do it. Possible, we'll leave that up to God. Is something possible or not? I don't know. But if it's necessary, let you go do the steps, and then God is gonna provide the results. And to go back to your question, sometimes the results of when we talk about transcendence is we become someone who we weren't before. Whatever it is, right? Resilience that we didn't have before, empathy that we didn't have before, whatever it is, right? That in itself is transcendence. And that is huge in Judaism and spirituality. The work of personal development is huge. It's also who we become in the process. Let's try and sum up, because we still have one question that's left unanswered. So we now understand where the miracle is, right? Why a nisaeon, a challenge, is related to what a miracle is, because when a person overcomes a challenge, that is miraculous. It is miraculous that someone does it. And I think we don't necessarily articulate it so much, but we do notice it. For example, we finished reading a book by Costa, and you're like, how could someone get through something like that, right? It's we recognize that this is too hard for you.
Like the people who survived the Holocaust.
Yes, like the resilience is it speaks
beyond human
nature. So there's even if we don't even if we never thought about it before, but when we think about it now, it is miraculous because we have that feeling of I can't, and that's actually accurate. And then when we get through it, we look back and how did you do it? I don't know. Right? We can't articulate it. So that's where the miracle is. Why did David ask for a test and fail? The Gemara discusses the story. Discusses the story of David and Bathsheba. And the Talmud asks, where was his mistake? Where was his error? You know what the Talmud says what his error was, what his mistake was? It says his error was that he asked for a test.
Exactly.
Why? What's so wrong about asking for a test?
Why was he comparing himself with the others?
Because he wanted to get to them. He wanted to get to that level. What's wrong with asking for a test? If test is what makes us greater, what's wrong with it? Here's what's wrong with it. Nobody asks for a test that they think they're going to fail. And the nature of a true test is it tests us to the point where we feel like we're going to fail. And there was this minute aspect of arrogance in King David's request, like, okay, test me. Yeah, if test
I can soar too.
yeah, I can do it. And a true test takes us to the point where we feel like I can't, where we feel like it's not possible. And that's and the point of that is to teach us that we cannot do it on our own. We need God in our life. Are we going to get the message? Not necessarily. But that's the point of the message, is to get us to the point where we feel like I can't. So if I can't do it on my own, who should I turn to?
So, but what was the mistake of David then?
Because he asked to be tested. We have to understand that King David was on a very high level. So we're talking about like a minute failure. For most of us, every day in the prayers we say, "Veloy al yedei nisaeon." Do not put us through a challenge. Life is full of challenges. Why are we praying for no challenges? Because a challenge tests us to the point where we feel like I can't. Well, I cannot do this on my own. What it should do to us, if I can't do it on my own, I've got to turn to God. I've still got to try, but I've got to turn to God and ask God to help
So
me.
did David not turn to God? Is that what it is?
He did turn to God, but his mistake was that he asked for a test, because had he really recognized that I cannot do this on my own, he would never have asked for a test.
Oh, gotcha,
right?
gotcha.
Like if he would have recognized I can't do this on my own, he would never ask for a test. Right? So there was a tiny bit of it that felt like, test me, I can get through it. And the whole point of a test is that we get to that point that it teaches us you can't do it on your own. You've got to bring God into your life. And then when a person does that two-step process, that they connect to God and they try, the result of it is transcendence, right? The result of it is we become more than we were before. Any questions from anyone?
This will be a discussion for another time. We Jews have been tested for 5,000 years. We were tested today when the Democratic Socialists of America are calling for our death, won many races. I don't understand why God keeps testing us. So I understand the fact that Israel survives is a miracle in itself, a tiny group of people in a sea of billions. But this testing is getting hard. And what
you're raising a very good point. And I want to say something. I want to make a differentiation. One of the age-old topics, philosophical topics that people grappled with throughout the years, including Moses, was why do bad things happen to good people, right? We've grappled with this question throughout our ages. And in fact, what God told Moses is, you can't understand it. You'll only be able to understand it in hindsight. Maybe 20 years later, you can understand it, maybe not in this lifetime. But there is that part that we don't understand why it is. And there's 8 different suggested reasons that is given of why bad things happen. One of those reasons is a challenge. Does it mean, do we know why Mamdani had to win the elections? That of this is not answering why do difficult things happen in life, but it's answering what do I do when I feel like I'm tested beyond my point of what do I do when I feel like I can't? And we have to understand that is an opening for us to attach ourselves to God, to pray to God, and to put in the effort. And sometimes what happens is transcendental, it's transformative, it's much more than what we would have done. The question that you're raising of why difficult things happen is a great topic, and we should do it at some point. But this is more of a question of what do I do when I feel challenged in my life?
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
That was great.
Classes are always inspiring.